Good evening, Philippines. It's Wednesday, July 17, 2013. Welcome to General Assignment. On the show this evening is Attorney Judo Bonifacio, President of the A2S5 Coalition. This is a part of civil society which fights for the rights of the citizenry to own and possess firearms, among other things. Also with us is Mr. Teddy Ngo, who is the country coordinator for the IDPA, or the International Defensive Pistol Association. And we'll be talking about the newly passed or newly signed firearms law, or what we call as a Comprehensive Firearms and Ammunition Law, otherwise known as Republic Act 10591. Good evening, Attorney Judo, and good evening, Teddy.
Good evening.
Welcome back. This is your second time around. Anyway, when we first met, we were still discussing the law as it was. It had yet to be signed, and there were a lot of there were a lot of apprehensions and questions regarding it. So I guess what we are going to talk about this evening is not just the owning or the possessing of firearms, because this can be a thorny and controversial topic. I would like to approach our discussion this evening from a civil rights point of view. So before anything else, since you're the lawyer, Judo, so what do you make of the law?
Actually, the law to me, after reading it and going through it and taking part actually in the drafting and the passing of the law, it actually achieved a lot of things that benefit the gun holders. It now empowers them and gives them certain rights. Unlike before that gun ownership is a privilege, now the law says it is now a right. As a matter of fact, if you look at Section 2 of the law, and I quote, it says that the state recognizes the right of its qualified citizens to self-defense in the use of firearms. So now,
because that's the most practical means possible. I mean, if this were 200 years ago, I guess people would be using swords or whatever, no? But
swords and arrows.
and arrows, or maybe a few centuries ago. But fact is that this is the technology nowadays. So yes, we have to see this law as going beyond just the guns, because guns is being vilified, and actually a lot of more liberal groups are giving a personality to the guns itself, no? But I guess what we're talking about, beyond the sportsmanship, the sporting or the hunting dimension of it, is the primary and the most basic, the most rudimentary role of this tool, which is to protect you from what seems to be the rising tide of criminality.
Yes, that's true. Because if you will read the newspapers every day, there is somebody who is actually being violated, whether being raped, being kidnapped, and they need to protect themselves.
I guess the only group that believes that criminality in this country is going down, if you ask them, is the Philippine National Police. But then again, that's subject to debate, no? Okay, I will ask Teddy. Teddy, you are with the IDPA, the International Defensive Pistol Association, which is a discipline, a shooting discipline that focuses on the truly practical side. I mean the user-friendly side of
the real
shooting.
Life side.
Okay, so we are not talking about those fast-paced competition-style shooting disciplines that use guns that are virtually akin to ray guns already. No?
Yes.
So tell us something about your organization, and what does the new law do for you?
Okay. First, IDPA features, number one, it features competition in a real-life situation. In other words, if the situation that you are competing in does not simulate a real-life situation where your life is being threatened by an unlawful aggressor, that cannot be a good IDPA competition stage.
So it's really defensive.
Yes. Secondly, IDPA is purely defensive, and it is handgun-centric. We concentrate only on handguns. Although there are longer firearms that are used, we are basically for handguns.
So, in effect, you don't teach them to go riding in tandem and shooting at the convoys.
You cannot be an aggressor in IDPA. It's always defensive.
Anyway,
Okay.
that's a good story.
Yeah, okay. Third, IDPA concentrates on how does one put it? IDPA concentrates on only realistically carryable firearms. In other words, the firearms must be suitable for all-day use in concealed carry. So if you have a gun that has a very large telescopic sight on it, you cannot use that because you cannot conceal that on your person, and you cannot carry that gun concealed for the entire day.
So the Hollywood stuff, the Hollywood props are out of the
None.
question. Okay. So what are the reactions that you are getting from your students, maybe, or participants in the IDPA?
Participants,
with RA 10591's
Yes.
Signing into law.
Yes. In the first place, a lot of the people who think IDPA is truly practical is actually our PNP personnel. Because now they understand that a shooting competition does not feature a situation where their lives are in danger. And because of IDPA, they realize that when they pull out that gun in defense of themselves, there is actually a threat on the opposite side. You're no longer just shooting at paper. All right? Now, the new law allows concealed carry. It is just the manner in which it is concealed when you carry. And IDPA is grounded on the fact that the firearm you carry must be concealed. So a lot of IDPA is based on a scenario that starts with your firearm hidden on your person.
Not in some bag that can be separated from
No,
you.
on your person, meaning to say holstered on your body. And you have to conceal it with an outer garment.
Does the law provide for that?
The law does not provide for the mode of carry, but the law specifically does mention concealed carry.
Which is good, no? I mean, you don't
Okay.
want to be frightening people
Yes.
around you.
Actually, the carrying of the gun in a clutch bag is merely an implementation that is the version of the PNP. It is not specifically mentioned in the law.
Okay. Attorney Judo, before we get into the nitty-gritty and the pros and cons, what are the qualifications of someone who is applying for a firearms license? In other words, someone who wants to buy a gun for whatever purpose, maybe for home defense, for personal defense, or just to shoot in the range or whatever, to go hunting once in a while?
There is the citizenship requirement that the gun owner must be a Filipino, and then he has to be at least 21 years of age, and that he actually has a gainful employment, he is actually in business, or he has actually filed his income tax return in the previous year. Now, aside from these three, of course, there are the test, the drug test, the psychological test, and other tests to actually see to ascertain that the person is of stable personality and character.
That's
and health.
important.
That's important.
And we agree with that at least.
I subscribe to that.
I think I've been talking to a lot of people because this is now being seen. The new firearms law, gun law, is being seen as a test case, not only for the gun ownership part of it, but really it's becoming a civil rights issue, because there are a lot of concerns, Attorney Judo. I'm sure you've heard some of them, and I guess the fear basically is that, well, before we get into the cons of it, one thing that is good about the law that we hear from a lot of quarters is the fact that the the discretionary powers of the police in general, or it's not even discretionary power. Some people would call it the caprices of whoever is running the PNP at a given time, no longer rules, because the law is laying down the ground rules in black and white, which everyone has to follow. So if a certain police chief is not a pro-gun, it really doesn't matter because the law is there. If the is pro-gun, still that's a good part of it. But on the negative side, I think there are fears that it still gives the PNP a lot of leeway as to the interpretation. I think that it's the implementing rules and the regulations that is being focused on, because, as they say, the devil is in the details.
That's correct. The IRR, the implementing rules and regulations, have not actually been drafted yet or drawn and approved. No, the PNP has actually is actually in the works of drafting the IRR, and that they have actually created certain technical working groups to tackle certain issues and topics of the IRR.
Is it a consultative thing, or is it something that they're doing unilaterally?
My understanding is the plan is supposed to be consultative because the law says so. You know, the nice thing about this law is it says that the PNP, in drafting the IRR, must consult.
But it's one thing, I mean, the law says one thing, but who is to question the police if they...
Well, now that there is a law that says...
Well, actually, that's one of the weaknesses of the law. The law comes up and states certain parameters with which the firearms ownership is supposed to be implemented. However, it leaves the implementing rules and regulations to be drafted by the implementing agency, which is the police.
Doesn't that nullify whatever gains the citizens have, or the gun owners have acquired by the passage of the law?
That is the reason why we have to be vigilant.
That's
why we have to be vigilant about it.
Because once there is a change of command, again, the person who is now in charge of the police force can decide that he will implement another set of IRRs.
So, in any policy making, we're not just talking about government policy making, even the private sector, there has to be not only the transparency part of it, but there has to be sort of consistency, meaning to say policies, procedures have to transcend changes in administration in any given office, or it puts everyone, it gives everyone a headache, I guess, and trouble for the gun owners.
Yeah, precisely. Before, there was confusion regarding the implementation of the gun laws, precisely because the gun laws were being implemented according to the guidelines as specified in the implementing rules and regulations, or the IRRs. Now, we still have the same situation, as the IRR is to be drafted by the police. And the IRR spells out or gives the current version of what the interpretation of this law is going, what interpretation this law is going to be implemented with.
So, Teddy, are you happy with the law?
Not exactly happy with it, but it's better than the situation that we did have before. A lot of the martial law provisions in the ownership of guns are still there, but it's a lot better than having the old firearms law, which were completely based on the martial law provisions.
So we are not,
and we are no longer under martial law, but so our gun laws are still under martial law.
Okay. Anyway, very interesting.